The First Punic War, fought between Rome and Carthage from 264 to 241 BCE, was a monumental conflict that set the stage for Rome's eventual dominance over the Mediterranean. This war, primarily fought over control of Sicily, was the first of three major wars between these two powerful states. The conflict arose from a seemingly minor local dispute, but escalated into a prolonged and costly struggle that significantly influenced the course of Western history. The origin of the First Punic War lie in the complex political landscape of Sicily. By the mid-3rd century BCE, Sicily was a patchwork of independent cities and colonies, many of which had historical ties to either Greek or Phoenician, Carthaginian powers. The two most significant players in Sicily at the time were the city of Syracuse, a powerful Greek city-state, and Carthage, a dominant maritime power with extensive colonies and trading networks throughout the western Mediterranean. In 288 BCE, the Mamertines, a group of Italian mercenaries, seized the city of Messina in northeastern Sicily. The Mamertines, originally hired by Syracuse, betrayed their employer and took control of the city, using it as a base for raids and piracy. This action destabilized the region and drew the ire of Syracuse, then under the leadership of Hierotehu. In 265 BCE, Hierotehu launched a campaign to reclaim Messina and restore order. Faced with the threat of conquest by Syracuse, the Mamertines sought assistance from both Carthage and Rome. Carthage, seeing an opportunity to expand its influence in Sicily, sent a garrison to occupy Messina, ostensibly to protect it from Syracuse, but also to establish a foothold in the strategically important city. At the same time, the Mamertines appealed to Rome, which was expanding its influence beyond the Italian peninsula. Rome's Senate initially debated the wisdom of intervening in Sicily. Some senators were wary of becoming entangled in Sicilian affairs, while others saw an opportunity to curb Carthaginian power and extend Roman influence. Ultimately, Rome decided to intervene, motivated by a combination of strategic interests and the desire to prevent Carthage from gaining complete control of Messina. In 264 BCE, Rome dispatched a force to Sicily, marking the beginning of its direct involvement in the island's affairs. The Roman consuls, Appius Claudius Caudex and Manius Valerius Maximus, led the expedition. Upon arrival, they demanded that the Carthaginian garrison withdraw from Messina. When the Carthaginian refused, the Roman attacked, successfully expelling the Carthaginian forces and securing the city. This action brought Rome into direct conflict with Carthage, setting the stage for the First Punic War. Carthage, unwilling to concede its interests in Sicily, mobilized its forces and allied with Syracuse against Rome. The initial phase of the war saw a series of engagements as both sides vied for control of key positions on the island. Rome quickly demonstrated its military prowess on land, winning several battles against Carthaginian and Syracusan forces. However, Carthage, with its superior navy, dominated the seas, using its fleet to blockade Roman-held positions and disrupt supply lines. Recognizing the importance of naval power, Rome embarked on an ambitious program to build a fleet capable of challenging Carthage's maritime supremacy. The two fleets met off the coast of Mylae, modern Milazzo, in northeastern Sicily. The Roman fleet, commanded by the consul Gaius Duilius, comprised around 120 ships. The Carthaginian fleet, led by Hannibal Gisco, was similarly sized and confident of victory, given their past naval successes. As the battle commenced, the Carthaginians sought to employ their superior maneuverability to outflank and ram the Roman ships. However, the Romans, using the corvus, managed to grapple and board the Carthaginian vessels. The corvus proved highly effective, allowing Roman marines to engage in close-quarter combat where they excelled. The innovative use of the corvus turned the tide in Rome's favor. Despite their inexperience at sea, the Romans captured or destroyed around 50 Carthaginian ships. This stunning victory at Mylae demonstrated that Rome could not only build a fleet, but also effectively challenge Carthage on the open sea. Gaius Duilius was celebrated for his leadership, and the victory at Mylae marked a significant turning point in the First Punic War. The Battle of Mylae was a morale-boosting victory for Rome, but it was far from decisive. The war continued for another 21 years, marked by a series of brutal engagements both on land and at sea. Following Mylae, Rome and Carthage each sought to gain the upper hand through a combination of military operations, strategic alliances, and economic pressure. Rome continued to build its naval capabilities, achieving further victories such as the Battle of Ecnomus in 256 BCE, one of the largest naval battles in history. This success allowed Rome to launch an invasion of North Africa, though this campaign ultimately ended in failure with a defeat at the Battle of Tunis in 255 BCE. Carthage, meanwhile, adapted to Roman tactics and improved its own strategies. The protracted conflict drained both sides, leading to immense human and economic costs. The final phase of the war saw Rome gradually gaining the upper hand, culminating in the decisive Battle of the Aegatis Islands in 241 BCE. As the First Punic War dragged on, the Roman leadership decided to strike at the heart of Carthaginian power by invading North Africa. The rationale behind this bold move was to force Carthage into a direct confrontation on its home turf, thereby shifting the strategic balance and potentially ending the war in Rome's favor. After their naval victories, including the significant triumph at the Battle of Mylae, the Romans felt confident enough to take the fight to Carthage itself. In 256 BCE, Rome assembled a large invasion force, including a substantial fleet and a seasoned army under the command of the consuls Marcus Atilius Regulus and Lucius Manlius Vulso. Their objective was to land in North Africa, capture key Carthaginian cities, and compel Carthage to sue for peace. Upon landing near modern-day Cape Bon, the Roman forces quickly moved inland, capturing the town of Aspis, also known as Clupea. This initial success boosted Roman morale and provided a secure base of operations. The Roman army then advanced towards the strategically important city of Attis. Carthage, caught off guard by the invasion, scrambled to mount a defense. The Carthaginian army, composed of citizen soldiers and mercenaries, faced significant challenges in coordinating an effective response. Nevertheless, they gathered their forces and prepared to confront the Roman invaders. The Battle of Attis took place in the late summer of 256 BCE. The Romans, leveraging their superior discipline and battlefield tactics, managed to rout the Carthaginian forces. This victory allowed the Romans to plunder the surrounding countryside and consolidate their control over the region. The success at Attis seemed to pave the way for a decisive Roman triumph in North Africa. Despite their initial setbacks, the Carthaginians did not capitulate. They regrouped and re-strategized, appointing the experienced general Xanthippus, a Spartan mercenary, to lead their forces. Xanthippus recognized that the Carthaginian army's previous failures were due to poor tactics rather than a lack of capability. He reorganized the army, focusing on integrating Carthage's formidable war elephants and cavalry more effectively. In early 203 BCE, the Carthaginian, under Xanthippus' command, engaged the Roman army near the city of Tunis. The Battle of Tunis was a stark contrast to the earlier engagement at Attis. Xanthippus deployed his forces with skill, using the elephants to disrupt the Roman infantry formations and the cavalry to outflank and encircle the Roman legions. The Romans, unaccustomed to facing war elephants and unable to adapt quickly to the new tactics, were decisively defeated. The battle was a disaster for Rome, with many of their soldiers killed, captured, or scattered. Consul Regulus himself was taken prisoner. The defeat at Tunis forced the Romans to abandon their campaign in North Africa and retreat, marking a significant setback in their effort to end the war swiftly. The First Punic War continued with a series of naval engagements, as both Rome and Carthage understood the critical importance of controlling the sea lanes for supply and troop movements. By 249 BCE, the focus of the conflict had shifted back to Sicily, where both sides sought to gain the upper hand. Drepana, a coastal town on the western tip of Sicily, became the focal point of a significant naval battle. The Roman fleet, under the command of Consul Publius Claudius Pulcher, aimed to deliver a crushing blow to the Carthaginian navy stationed at Drepana. In the spring of 249 BCE, Claudius Pulcher attempted a surprise attack on the Carthaginian fleet anchored at Drepana. However, the operation began poorly. According to historical accounts, Pulcher sought to divine the gods' favor by observing sacred chickens' feeding behavior, a common practice in Roman religion. When the chicken refused to eat, an ominous sign, Pulcher reportedly threw them into the sea, declaring, "If they won't eat, let them drink." This act was seen as a grave sacrilege and a bad omen. The Roman fleet, numbering about 120 ships, approached Drepana under the cover of darkness. However, the element of surprise was lost when the fleet's movements were detected. The Carthaginian commander at Hannibal skillfully organized his ships into a defensive formation, ready to counter the Roman assault. As dawn broke, the Romans found themselves at a disadvantage. The Carthaginian ships, better maneuvered and more adept at naval combat, launched a counterattack. the Carthaginian navy executed a series of ramming and boarding maneuvers that threw the Roman fleet into disarray. Pulcher's fleet suffered heavy losses, with nearly 93 ships either destroyed or captured. The Battle of Drepana was a catastrophic defeat for Rome, highlighting their naval shortcomings and the formidable prowess of the Carthaginian navy. This victory allowed Carthage to regain control of the western Sicilian waters, prolonging the conflict and staving off Roman advances for several more years. By 241 BCE, both Rome and Carthage were exhausted from decades of continuous warfare. The prolonged conflict had drained resources and manpower, and both sides were eager for resolution. The Romans, having rebuilt their navy after the disaster at Drepana, prepared for a decisive confrontation. The Carthaginian fleet, tasked with supplying their beleaguered forces in Sicily, was the target. The Romans, under the command of Consul Gaius Lutatius Catulus, aimed to intercept and destroy the Carthaginian fleet near the Aegae's Islands off the western coast of Sicily. On March 10, 241 BCE, the Roman fleet engaged the Carthaginian ships. The Romans had made several improvements to their naval tactics and ship design since their previous encounters. They had lightened their vessels, making them more maneuverable and effective in combat. The Carthaginian fleet, heavily laden with supplies and manned by hastily assembled crews, was at a disadvantage. The Romans, benefiting from favorable winds and their superior seamanship, launched a coordinated assault. The Carthaginian ships, unable to maneuver effectively, were overwhelmed by the Roman attack. The Battle of the Aegae's Island was a decisive Roman victory. Approximately 50 Carthaginian ships were sunk and many more were captured. This defeat crippled Carthage's ability to resupply its forces in Sicily and marked the end of their naval resistance. The devastating loss at the Aegae's Islands forced Carthage to seek peace. The Carthaginian Senate, recognizing the untenability of continuing the war, sent envoys to Rome to negotiate terms. The resulting Treaty of Lutatius, signed in 241 BCE, formally ended the First Punic War. The terms of the treaty were harsh for Carthage. 1. Territorial concessions. Carthage agreed to cede Sicily and the surrounding island to Rome. This marked Rome's first significant acquisition of territory outside the Italian peninsula. 2. War indemnity. Carthage was required to pay a substantial indemnity to Rome over a period of 10 years, amounting to 3,200 talents of silver. This financial burden further strained Carthage's already depleted resources. 3. Military restrictions. Carthage agreed to restrict its naval activities and refrain from attacking Rome's allies. The end of the First Punic War had profound and lasting impacts on both Rome and Carthage. For Rome, the acquisition of Sicily marked the beginning of its transformation from a regional power into a dominant Mediterranean empire. Sicily became Rome's first province, serving as a critical grain supplier and a base for further expansion. Carthage, on the other hand, faced significant challenges in the aftermath of the war. The financial strain of the war indemnity and the loss of Sicily weakened Carthage economically and militarily. These hardships contributed to internal strife and the eventual mercenary war, a brutal conflict with unpaid mercenaries that further destabilized the Carthaginian state. As the dust of the First Punic War settled, Rome found itself victorious but battered, and Carthage was left in ruins. Yet, from the ashes of this brutal conflict, a new, even deadlier threat would emerge. By the end of this video, you will discover how Rome's hard-won peace would sow the seed of an even greater, more catastrophic war. This is the Second Punic War. The conclusion of the First Punic War left Carthage in a precarious position. The loss of Sicily and the imposition of a substantial war indemnity to Rome severely strained Carthage resources. Additionally, Carthage faced internal strife, culminating in the mercenary war in 240 to 238 BCE, a brutal conflict with its own unpaid mercenary. The resolution of this internal conflict allowed Carthage to turn its attention outward, seeking new territory and resources to cover its strength. In 237 BCE, Hamilcar Barca, a prominent Carthaginian general who had distinguished himself during the later stages of the First Punic War, embarked on a bold campaign to expand Carthaginian influence in Spain. This venture was driven by several motivations. First, Carthage needed new source of wealth to pay off the war indemnity and rebuild its economy. Secondly, Spain offered rich mineral resources, including silver, which were essential for Carthage's economic recovery. Lastly, establishing a stronghold in Spain provided a strategic base from which Carthage could potentially challenge Roman dominance in the future. Hamilcar Barca led a Carthaginian expeditionary force to the Iberian Peninsula, where he initiated a series of military campaigns to subdue local tribes and establish Carthaginian control. Hamilcar's strategy combined military powers with diplomatic acumen. He forged alliances with some tribes while using force against others, gradually extending Carthaginian influence over a large part of southern and eastern Spain. One of Hamilcar's significant achievements was the foundation of a new Carthage, Latin Carthago Nova, modern-day Cartagena, around 227 BC. The new Carthage quickly became administrative and military center of the Carthaginian Spain. Its strategic location on the southeastern coast of the Iberian Peninsula provided a secure harbor and a gateway to the mineral-rich interior region. The city's foundation marked the beginning of a sustained Carthaginian presence in Spain and laid the groundwork for future Barcid ambition. As the Carthage expanded its influence in Spain, Rome watched with increasing concern. The memory of the First Punic War and the recent conflict with the Carthage made the Romans wary of Carthaginian resurgence. To mitigate the risk of the renewed hostilities, Rome sought to limit Carthaginian expansion while avoiding the direct confrontation. In 226 BCE, Rome and Carthage negotiated the Treaty of Ebro River. This treaty established the Ebro River, Ebrus in Latin, as the northern boundary of Carthaginian influence in Spain. Under the term of agreement, Carthage pledged not to expand its territory north of the Ebro River, while Rome agreed not to interfere with Carthaginian activities south of the river. The Treaty of Ebro River was a pragmatic compromise that reflected the geopolitical realities of the time. For Rome, the treaty provided a buffer zone that protected its interests in northern Spain and southern Gaul. For Carthage, the agreement allowed continued expansion and consolidation in southern Spain, without immediate Roman opposition. However, the treaty was inherently unstable, and it did not address the underlying tensions and competing ambitions of the two powers. In 221 BCE, following the death of Hasdrubal the Fair, Hamilcar's son-in-law and successor, Hannibal Barca, the eldest son of Hamilcar, assumed command of Carthaginian forces in Spain. Hannibal, then in his mid-20s, had been groomed for leadership by his father and had proven himself in various military campaigns. His ascension to command marks the continuation of the Barcid family's legacy and ambitions. Hannibal inherited a well-organized and experienced army, along with a network of alliances and fortifications established by his father and Hasdrubal. His immediate goal was to solidify Carthaginian control over Spain and prepare for an eventual confrontation with Rome that had believed was inevitable. Under Hannibal's leadership, Carthaginian forces continued to expand their influence in Spain. Hannibal employed a combination of military campaign and diplomatic effort to secure loyalty of various tribes. He also focused on strengthening the infrastructure of New Carthage, enhancing its role as the logistical and strategic hub of Carthaginian operation in Spain. Hannibal's vision extended beyond mere territorial control. He understood that to challenge Rome effectively, Carthage needed not only a strong military, but also economic resources and popular support. To this end, he encouraged the exploitation of Spain's mineral wealth, particularly silver, to fund military operation and secure the loyalty of his troops. Hannibal's ultimate goal was to avenge Carthage's defeat in the First Punic War and restore Carthaginian supremacy in the western Mediterranean. He believed that the best way to achieve this was to carry that war into Italy, directly challenging Rome on its own territory. Hannibal's strategy involved using Spain as a base to launch an audacious campaign that would involve crossing the Pyrenees and the Alps to reach Italy. The immediate catalyst for the Second Punic War was the conflict over the city Saguntum, modern Sagunto, located south of the Ebro River but allied with Rome. In 219 BCE, Hannibal laid siege to Saguntum, defying the Treaty of Ebro River and provoking the direct confrontation with Rome. The siege lasted several months, during which the Saguntes resisted fiercely, hoping for Roman intervention. Despite Saguntum's plea for assistance, Rome was slow to respond, preoccupied with other military engagement and political consideration. Eventually, Saguntum fell into Hannibal's forces and the city was sacked. The Roman Senate, outraged by the attack on their ally, demanded that the Carthage hand over Hannibal for violating the treaty. When Carthage refused, Rome declared war, marking the beginning of the Second Punic War. Hannibal's decision to attack Saguntum and provoke Rome was a calculated risk. He knew that a direct assault on Roman allies would force the Roman into a war that he had meticulously prepared for. Hannibal's strategy was to weaken Rome by casting off the alliances and disrupting its supply lines, creating opportunities for a decisive victory on the battlefield. Hannibal's subsequent campaigns, including his legendary crossing of the Alps with his army and war elephants, demonstrated his strategic genius and audacity. His initial victories in Italy, such as the Battle of Trebia, Trasimene, and Cannae, showcased his tactical brilliance and shook the foundation of Roman power. The Second Punic War, a monumental conflict between Rome and Carthage, spanned from 218 to 201 BCE, was marked by a series of dramatic battles, brilliant military strategies, and immense human suffering. Hannibal Barca, the Carthaginian general, played a central role in this war, leading his force through some of the most challenging terrains and achieving remarkable victories against the Romans. This phase of the video will cover the key events and battles that define this period, including Hannibal's invasion of Italy, his victories at Trunius, Trebia and Lake Trasimene and Cannae, and the Roman siege of Syracuse. Hannibal Barca, having secured Carthaginian control over much of Spain, devised an audacious plan to strike at the heart of Roman power. Rather than confronting Rome through the predictable and fortified southern routes, Hannibal chose to lead his army on a daring march across the Pyrenees through Gaul and over the formidable Alps into Italy. This route, while perilous, would catch the Roman off guard and enable Hannibal to launch a surprise invasion. In the late summer of 218 BCE, Hannibal embarked on his journey with the army composed of approximately 50,000 infantry, 9,000 cavalry, and 37 war elephants. The march was grueling, with the harsh weather, treacherous terrain, and a constant harassment by hostile tribes. The crossing took a heavy toll on Hannibal's forces, with many soldiers, animals, and elephants perishing along the way. However, Hannibal's leadership and determination inspired his troops to persevere. Despite the significant losses, Hannibal's successful crossing of the Alps remained one of the most celebrated feats in the military history. Emerging into the Po Valley, Hannibal was now poised to confront the Roman on their own soil. The first major engagement between Hannibal and the Roman occurred at the Battle of Ticinus in the late 218 BCE. The Roman consuls Publius Cornelius Scipio led a reconnaissance force to gauge Hannibal's strength. Hannibal, seizing the opportunity, launching a swift cavalry attack, routing the Roman forces. Scipio himself was wounded and narrowly escaped capture. This victory boosted Hannibal's reputation and morale while instilling fear among the Romans. Following the victory at Ticinus, Hannibal moved to Trebia River, where he faced the Roman consuls Tiberius Sempronius Longus. Hannibal cunningly lured the Roman forces into a trap. He deployed his troops strategically, using hidden contingents to ambush the Romans. On a bitterly cold December morning, the Romans, exhausted and poorly prepared, were attacked from all sides. The Carthaginian cavalry and war elephant played a crucial role in the battle, overwhelming the Roman legions. The Battle of Trebia resulted in a devastating defeat for Rome, with thousands of Roman soldiers killed or captured. Hannibal's tactical brilliance was on full display, and the victory of Trebia solidified his foothold in Italy, setting the stage for further invasions. In the spring of 217 BCE, Hannibal continued his campaign in Italy, advancing southward and aiming to draw the Romans into another decisive battle. The Roman consuls Gaius Flaminius, eager to confront Hannibal, pursued him aggressively. Hannibal, known for his strategic ingenuity, devised a plan to ambush the Roman army near the Lake Trasimene in the central Italy. Hannibal carefully chose the battlefield, positioning his troops in concealed positions along the narrow paths by the lake. As the Roman army marched along the lake's edge, Hannibal's forces launched a sudden and coordinated attack. The Romans, trapped between the lake and the Carthaginian army, were caught in a deadly ambush. The Battle of Lake Trasimene was a catastrophic defeat for Rome. Hannibal's ambush was executed with precision, resulting in a complete annihilation of Roman army. Gaius Flaminius was killed in the battle, and was approximately 15,000 Roman soldiers were either killed or captured. The survivors were scattered and demoralized. This victory demonstrated Hannibal's mastery of surprise tactic and his ability to exploit terrain to his advantage. It has also had a profound psychological impact on Rome, leading to widespread panic and fear. In response to the crisis, Rome appointed Quintus Fabius Maximus as a dictator, tasking him with devising a strategy to counter Hannibal's advances. Hannibal's campaign reached its zenith at the Battle of Cannae, fought in the summer of 216 BCE. Determined to crush Hannibal, Rome amassed one of the largest armies it had ever fielded, with around 80,000 infantry and 6,000 cavalry, under the command of consuls Lucius Aemilius Paulus and Gaius Terentius Varro. Hannibal, although outnumbered, meticulously planned the battle. He chose the battlefield near the town of Cannae in Apulia, a location that allowed him to employ his superior tactics. His army, composed of roughly 50,000 infantry and 10,000 cavalry, was positioned in a manner that would maximize their effectiveness. Hannibal's strategy at Cannae was a masterpiece of military tactics. He placed his weakest troops, the Gauls and the Ibrians, in the center, with his stronger African infantry on the flanks and his cavalry on the wings. As the Roman legions advances, Hannibal's center gradually retreated, creating a concave formation that enveloped the Roman forces. Once the Romans were fully committed and surrounded, Hannibal's cavalry, led by his brother Mago and the Numidian commander Maharbal, executed a devastating attack on the Roman rear. The Roman army, trapped in a tight space and unable to maneuver, was systematically slaughtered. The Battle of Cannae was a striking defeat for Rome. An estimated 50,000 to 70,000 Roman soldiers were killed, including many high-ranking officers, while Hannibal's losses were comparatively light. The scale of Roman casualties with the strategic brilliance of Hannibal's double envelopment made Cannae one of the most famous and studied battles in the military history. In the wake of Cannae, several of the Rome's allies in southern Italy defected to Hannibal, believing that Rome's defeat was imminent. However, Rome's resilience and determination to continue the fight would eventually turn the tide of the war. While Hannibal was ravaging Italy, Rome sought to regain control of Sicily, a crucial strategic location that had been contested during the First Punic War. Syracuse, a powerful and culturally significant city on the eastern coast of Sicily, had allied with Carthage. The Roman general Marcus Claudius Marsilius was tasked with besieging Syracuse and bringing it back under Roman control. The defense of Syracuse was ingeniously fortified by the famous mathematician and inventor Archimedes. Utilizing his knowledge of engineering, Archimedes designed a series of formidable defenses that included massive catapults, bastille, and the legendary Archimedes' claw, a crane-like device that could lift and capsize attacking ship. These inventions inflicted significant damage on the Roman besieger and delayed their efforts to breach the city's wall. Despite Archimedes' innovations, the Roman siege persisted. Over time, the Romans managed to tighten their blockade, cutting off supplies to the city. In 212 BCE, after a protracted siege, Roman forces finally breached the defenses and captured Syracuse. Marsilius ordered that Archimedes be spared, but the great inventor was tragically killed by a Roman soldier during the chaos of the city's sack. The fall of Syracuse marked a significant victory for Rome, securing their control over Sicily and depriving Carthage of a valuable ally. It also demonstrated Rome's determination and their resourcefulness in overcoming even the most formidable defenses. As the Second Punic War dragged on, both Rome and Carthage were seeking decisive engagement to tip the scales in their favor. After years of campaigning in Italy, Hannibal still posed a significant threat to Rome. Meanwhile, Hasdrubal Barca, Hannibal's brother, was gathering reinforcement in Spain to march into Italy and join forces with Hannibal, hoping to deliver a crushing blow to the Roman Republic. In 207 BCE, Hannibal successfully crossed the Alps, mirroring his brother's earlier feat, and entered in northern Italy. He carried with him not only reinforcement but also vital supplies and a plan to coordinate with Hannibal for a renewed offensive against Rome. However, the Roman intercepted Hannibal's messenger, learning of his movement and intentions. This intelligence allowed the Romans to prepare a coordinated response. The Roman consuls in 207 BCE, Marcus Livius Salinator and Gaius Claudius Nero, orchestrated a strategic pincer movement to intercept Hannibal before he could link up with Hannibal. Nero, stationed in southern Italy facing Hannibal, made a rapid and secretive march north to join forces with Livius, who was already positioned to block Hannibal's advance. The two Roman armies met Hannibal at the Maturus River in northern Italy. The Battle of Maturus ensued, with the Roman outnumbering and outmaneuvering Hannibal's forces. Despite a valiant effort, Hannibal was overwhelmed by the combination Roman legions. The battle culminated in a decisive Roman victory, with Hannibal himself being killed during the fighting. The defeat and death of Hannibal at the Battle of Maturus has profound implications for the Second Punic War. It marked the end of any realistic hope for Hannibal to receive substantial reinforcement from Spain, significantly weakening his position in Italy. The loss of his brother and the critical reinforcement was a severe blow to Hannibal's campaign, leaving him increasingly isolated and on the defensive. The victory at the Maturus River also boosted Roman morale and solidified their strategic advances. It demonstrated Romans' capacity for effective intelligence, rapid troop movement, and coordinated military strategy. With Hannibal's threat neutralized, Rome could focus more resources and efforts on finally driving Hannibal out of Italy and concluding the war on favorable terms. By 202 BCE, the prolonged conflict had taken a toll on both Rome and Carthage. Hannibal remained in southern Italy, continuing to harass Roman territories, but his strategic situation has deteriorated significantly. Meanwhile, Rome has shifted its focus to North Africa, the heartland of Carthage, aiming to force a decisive end to the war. Scipio Africanus, a brilliant Roman general, had been conducting successful campaigns in Spain and North Africa, weakening Carthaginian power and securing alliances with local tribes. In 204 BCE, Scipio landed in North Africa, threatening Carthage directly. This bold move forced the Carthaginian Senate to recall Hannibal from Italy to defend the homeland. The decisive confrontation between Scipio and Hannibal took place near the town of Zama, approximately 120 kilometers southwest of Carthage. Hannibal, commanding the formidable army that included war elephants, hoped to leverage his tactical genius one last time to secure victory. Scipio, however, has carefully studied Hannibal's tactics and prepared his forces accordingly. He had formed alliances with Numidian cavalry under Massinissa, which provide a crucial advantage. On the day of the battle, Scipio deployed his troop in a formation designed to counter Hannibal's elephant and outflank his infantry. The battle began with a charge of Carthaginian war elephant, which Scipio's troop expertly countered, creating a lane for the elephant to pass through without causing significant damage. The Numidian cavalry then engaged and eventually routed the Carthaginian cavalry, leaving Hannibal's flank vulnerable. As the main infantry forces clad, Scipio's disciplined legions gradually gained the upper hand. The Roman troops, supported by Numidian cavalry, encircled Hannibal's army. Despite Hannibal's best effort to relay his men, the Carthaginians were decisively defeated. The Battle of Zama ended a comprehensive Roman victory, sealing the fate of Carthage. The defeat at Zama forces Carthage to sue for peace. The terms imposed by Rome were harsh and aimed at permanently crippling Carthaginian power. Under the Treaty of Zama, Carthage was required to surrender its fleet, pay a massive indemnity, and cede its overseas territories, including Spain, to Rome. Additionally, Carthage was forbidden from waging war without Roman permission, effectively reducing it to a client state. The end of the Second Punic War marks the beginning of the Rome's dominance in the Western Mediterranean. Hannibal, once the terror of the Rome, now a fugitive, eventually fleeing to the Eastern Mediterranean, where he would spend his final year in exile. Carthage, once a formidable rival, was now a humble and subordinate power, its ambition curtailed by Roman supremacy. The legacy of the Second Punic War was profound, shaping the future trajectory of both Rome and Carthage. Rome emerged as a prominent power in Mediterranean, setting the stage for its expansion in the West Empire. The war also cemented the reputation of Hannibal and Scipio as the two history great as military commanders, their strategies and the battle studies for centuries to come. In the aftermath, The Roman Republic continued to expand its territories and influence, while Carthage, though a so wealthy and culturally vibrant city, never regained its former power. The seed of Carthage's ultimate destruction were sown during this period, culminating the Third Punic War and the complete destruction of Carthage in 146 BCE. However, the memory of Hannibal's audacious campaign and the epic struggle between these two great civilizations would endure as a testament to enduring spirit of human conflict and relentless pursuit of power and glory. This is it for the Third Punic War, 149 to 146 BCE. The last in the series of Punic Wars was an intense, brutal showdown between the Roman Republic and the North African city of Carthage. Although Carthage had once been a maritime superpower, its defeat in the Second Punic War, 218 to 201 BCE, had stripped it of its navy, colonies, and military power. Yet, despite these limitations, Carthage managed to revive economically, sparking fear in Rome that their old adversary might one day regain enough power to threaten them once more. This war encapsulated themes of unrelenting ambitions, crippling internal strife, and Rome's strategic effort to eliminate any future competition. In the year following the Second Punic War, Carthage found itself shackled by a peace treaty with Rome, severely restricting its military capabilities and subjecting it to annual indemnities. However, Carthage remained a wealthy trade hub, recovering financially and economically, which fueled concern in Rome. In contrast, Rome emerged from the previous war as a dominant power, conquering territories in Spain, Greece, and the Mediterranean island. Nevertheless, a fear persisted among Romans, especially those in the Senate, that Carthage, if allowed to prosper, could one day rekindle its former military might. Adding to these tensions was the Kingdom of Numidia, Carthage's western neighbor. Under King Massinissa, an ally of Rome, Numidia frequently encroached upon Carthaginian territory, taking advantage of Carthage's inability to defend itself militarily due to the treaty's restriction. Despite repeated appeal to Rome to curb Numidian aggression, the Senate consistently ruled in Massinissa's favor. By 150 BCE, Carthage had reached its limit, resulting in a retaliatory strike against Numidia. This violation of treaty provided Rome with the perfect pretext to declare war, ostensibly to punish Carthage's breach of peace, but in reality, to eliminate a rival once and for all. When the Roman Senate declared war on Carthage in 149 BCE, the Republic's strategy was to conduct a swift and total campaign. The objective was not merely to subdue Carthage, but to ensure that it could never again pose a threat. Consequently, Rome's initial demand was not for territory or concessions, but for Carthage's complete disarmament and relocation away from the coast, an impossible demand for a maritime city. For Carthage, the strategic and geographic situation was dire. Surrounded by Numidia to the west and a growing Roman presence on all sides of the Mediterranean, Carthage's isolation was near total. Furthermore, Rome effectively cut out any potential alliance that could assist Carthage, ensuring that the city faced a full force of Roman military power alone. Rome's knowledge of Carthaginian weaknesses from previous war also meant that they were all well prepared to exploit every vulnerability in Carthage's defenses. Carthage was already politically unstable at the time of Rome's declaration of war. The city was divided between two fractions. One group advocated for a peaceful relation with Rome, while the other called for defiance against Numidian aggression, and by extension, Roman interference. This fractionalism undermined Carthage's unity and ability to make cohesive strategic decisions. While some Carthaginians argued for appeasement, others viewed the impending conflict as an unavoidable fight for survival. The internal struggle intensified after Rome demanded that Carthage disarm entirely.
While Carthage initially complied with Rome's request, surrendering its weapon and war machines, the final demand to abandon the city pushed the Carthaginian into an open defiance. This polarization between factions cost Carthage valuable time and resources that could have been directed towards a focused defense. By the time Carthage committed to war, it was already a logistical disadvantage. Rome's strength lay in its organized military and political stability. The Roman legions were battle-hardened, highly disciplined, and equipped with advanced siege technology. Unlike Carthage, which had been forced to demobilize much of its army, Rome was free to deploy tens of thousands of well-trained soldiers and was not constrained by economic or political instability plagued by its opponent. Furthermore, Rome's strategy involved psychological warfare as much as it did brute force. Knowing Carthage's fear of destruction, the Romans used intimidation tactics and propaganda to undermine Carthaginian morale. Rome's clear-cut objective of total victory meant that it was not open to negotiation, projecting an aura of unstoppable power that weighed heavily on Carthage's leadership. The Third Punic War culminated in a 3-year siege of Carthage, with Roman forces surrounding the city by land and sea. The siege was characterized by fierce urban warfare, with Carthaginian defenders fighting desperately in narrow streets and fortified buildings. Carthage, though disadvantaged in manpower and resources, made extensive use of its existing city defenses and utilized every tactic available, including guerrilla-style ambushes and counterattacks, to slow Roman progress. The layout of Carthage, fortified walls, harbor defenses, and complex street system provided initial resilience. However, the city's isolation and lack of external support meant that supplies dwindled over time. Rome gradually tightened its grip, deploying a full blockade that cut off Carthage food and water supplies. The Romans, under the command of Scipio Aemilianus, also began dismantling Carthage defenses systematically, breaching the wall and advancing through the city inch by inch. By the spring of 146 BCE, the Carthaginians were exhausted, weakened by starvation, disease, and unrelenting siege. Scipio ordered the final assault that breached Carthage's remaining defenses, initiating one of the most brutal episodes of the conflict. Roman forces advanced into the city, fighting block by block in what became a bloodbath of close-quarter combat. Carthage's last defender, many of them citizens rather than professional soldiers, fought to death. The end came swiftly once the Roman overran the inner city. Carthage was systematically destroyed. Buildings were razed, the streets were littered with the bodies of the defenders and civilians, and those who survived either enslaved or fled. To ensure that Carthage could never rise again, Roman soldiers reportedly sowed salt into the land, rendering it barren, a symbolic gesture underscoring Rome's unyielding determination to eradicate any future threat. The destruction of Carthage marked the complete subjugation of the Western Mediterranean under Roman control. As Rome annexed Carthaginian territories, transforming them into the Roman provinces of Africa, this act not only ended Carthaginian influence but also sent a powerful message to any potential rivals. Rome had shown that it would stop at nothing to protect its supremacy. Moreover, the fall of Carthage intensified Rome's internal strife as the wealth from the conquered territories flowed into Republic, fueling class tensions and settling the stage for future internal conflict. Meanwhile, Carthage's complete destruction left a lasting legacy as a cautionary tale of resistance against Rome, establishing Rome as an unparalleled hegemon of the Mediterranean world. The Third Punic War stands as a decisive and ruthless conflict that reshaped the balance of power in the ancient world. Through a combination of overwhelming military strength, strategic maneuvering, and psychological warfare, Rome eradicated its long-standing rival. Well, this is it for today's video. If you wanna watch how Carthage came into power against the Roman Empire, watch this full playlist where not only we have covered First and Second Punic War, but also the origin of Roman Empire and the continuation of it till now.